Romesh, welcome to the Built Different podcast. It's great to have you on. How are you today?
Hi, Stephen. I'm really good, thank you. Really well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yep. I hope the kids in the background stay quiet long enough for us to get through this episode. If they don't, I've got to apologise in advance. I've told the wife and the nanny to keep them quiet, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's great to have you on. I always find getting financial experts on the show is always good because I always learn something, but also you've got a very unique perspective in that you're speaking to a lot of business owners from different industries across your career. And you're uniquely positioned because you have seen pain points, you've seen challenges, you've seen wins, setbacks that business owners are achieving, suffering from. And some of these things might also be things that you've went through as well in your career. So I want to kind of explore that. I know you've got a really cool podcast as well. And that's something that I like to explore with guests because it's a passion of mine, obviously, as we're on this show.
Indeed.
But
Yeah.
but it'd be great, Romesh, to hear a little bit about you, your backstory, and we'll kind of kick off from there.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks again, Stephen, for inviting me. So, quick summary on myself. I'm an accountant for my sins. So,
No
EY
booing in the background.
qualified. Indeed. Yeah, so I'm EY top four accounting qualified London office many years ago. I spent 6 years at a FTSE 100 business in various senior finance roles. But since 2008, I've been a finance director or chief financial officer to some quite successful startups. And I've really enjoyed that journey and learning how to thrive in that kind of environment, which is very dynamic, fast paced, etc. I had hung around with entrepreneurs for quite some time and it finally rubbed off on me. So I set up my own business in 2020, which is the FD Consultant. And we are a group of part-time or fractional chief financial officers helping startups, scale-ups and SMEs.
Okay. And I always find this interesting because there's a transition there from the big kind of corporate job, the big corporate world, to being an entrepreneur yourself, a business owner yourself. How was that transition? And you mentioned rubbing shoulders with other entrepreneurs. What was the trigger point for you to go and start your own business?
Some good questions there. So, yeah, there is a transition. There really is. And as I mentioned, the startup scale-up SME world is so dynamic. It's so high energy. It's so fast-paced. And you never have enough time. You never have enough resource. And so, well, you know, let me give you an example of when I started my first day as finance director for a business called London Biopackaging. Turned up and I was in my suit and there were people walking around barefoot. And I kind of raised an internal eyebrow and I thought, okay,
This is the real world.
I've joined the real world. I'm going to have to adjust a little bit here. And yeah, that's quite a funny example. But yeah, that pace is unreal. It's relentless. And because you do have that limitation of resources, which is quite different, obviously, to a large business, large corporation, which was my initial background, you have to prioritize yourself. You have to become very commercial. You have to be a really fantastic team player to thrive. You have to help build up others and you have to support the rest of the leadership team and be as flexible and adaptable as possible. And I learned those lessons over time and I really, after adjusting I just learned to absolutely love it. I loved it from day one, really. I love that energy, that vibe. And what I've always tried to do is take that gold-plated training and experience from the large businesses that I had, I suppose, learned from in my formative years and transpose those to the SME businesses I was then supporting, but doing it in a way that was relevant to them. So not kind of doing things for doing sake, but doing things because they were mission critical and they're really important for that business at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to answer the question that you are, sorry, about what kind of made me think about setting up my own business, I think ultimately, I think there's so much value that an experienced finance director can add to an SME business. So much. There are so many pain points for a business leader in that environment. And there are so many challenges. And a good FD can help massively in that scenario, help you plot a path forwards, transform your strategy into numbers, and help you understand the problems or opportunities that might arise. If it's more defensive and you're managing cash flows, that can take a huge amount of anxiety away from business owners, because you can, if you know something is coming up in 3 months' time, which is a challenge, you've got time to deal with it rather than not knowing at all or having 2 weeks' notice. It's just an obvious thing to say, I suppose, but you kind of give leadership in the other aspects of the business time to breathe, take a step away from the finances and administration, and actually focus on what they're good at.
Yeah,
and I love that.
It's a great point, because I felt this when I started my own business. I was part of my family business for many years, and being an employee, whilst I was quite high in the company, is completely different to owning the business, because then you have to wear multiple hats at all times. You need to be sales and marketing, finance, ops, customer service, and particularly with finance, none of us get taught this stuff in school from a business perspective. No one teaches you how to manage debt, what's good debt, bad debt, what's an asset, what's a liability, what is a P&L, what's a balance sheet. You don't get taught any of this stuff in school necessarily, unless you go and get further educated on it. And as business owners, it's very easy to set up a business in the UK. Quite often it's people who are good at the thing they do, but they're not very good at all at the back end stuff, the finance stuff. So that's where you come in, where you can actually take that information, put it in a way that makes sense to the business owner, and as you mentioned, allows them to do what they're good at.
Yeah. Can I ask what business was the family business for
So
you?
it was a waste management business.
Okay.
So I grew up in that business pretty much from birth, really. And we were doing £35 million a year for 7 or 8 years in a row. So I was, as family, sometimes people think from the outside that you're given a role, but in reality, I had to work from the ground up. My first job properly in the business was in the warehouse. My tool of choice was a squeegee, so I was squeegeeing the floors, getting the floors all clean, and eventually worked my way up to being the ops director of the business. So we had 400 staff. So that was high intense pressure, but I was used to it. But then when I stepped out of that and started my own business, that's when I really learned about business, because I didn't know or think to track cash. I didn't keep my VAT in a separate bank account. All these basic things that sometimes you have to make a big mess of before realizing how to actually manage it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really interesting, and you've used that as a massive learning experience, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, and I suppose to answer your question, I think yeah, it's about providing relevant information. One thing I've learned really quickly is that business owners of SMEs or leadership teams of SMEs don't care about accounting. They don't care. What they want to know is, what matters to the business, where are the opportunities, where are the weaknesses, what can we do to make things better? And by the way, can we have a bit of peace of mind because we don't want to be thinking about this stuff? And that's what a CFO can bring. And what we try and do at the FD Consultant is just take that pain away and support and, present information simply, right? We might be doing complex stuff in the background, but we don't need to explain why it's complex or kind of justify our existence. I think it's more about, hey guys, here's the relevant information from the work we've done, and this is what can change the business. These are the opportunities, these are the weaknesses, these are the areas we need to work on. And I think that's the power in what we do. It's explaining things simply, right? We don't want to dazzle people with accounting terms because, frankly, you won't dazzle people.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
it needs to be in plain English, doesn't it? And you're right to say it needs to be distilled down into the data that they actually need, the numbers they need. And what does that mean? As you say, how's the business today? How do we move the business from where it is today to where you want to be? This is the delta, and this is how we can achieve that.
Yes.
From your side, how do you find the accountancy world? And the reason I'm asking that is part of what I do. I speak to a lot of business owners from an acquisitions perspective, consultants perspective, whatever. And often there's when it comes to accountancy, there's 2 or 3 main things that keep coming around in the conversations. I'll ask them about their accountant, and I would say 9 out of 10 business owners say, my accountant's not great because I only hear from them at the end of the year to, do the year-end accounts. I'll get a big tax bill and I won't hear from them again for another 12 months. So they don't have any actionable data. Now, there's 2 sides to the coin there. You've got the client who's maybe not engaging properly, and then maybe older school accountants who don't engage with the clients as much as they should. Do you see that as a problem in the industry? And I know the answer to this because I know you guys do much more detailed client-driven work. But do you think that is a problem in the industry?
It's a really, really good question. And I wonder if it's a lack of maybe a clear expectation from business leadership of SMEs at this point, because the accountants that you're referring to are technical accountants who are excellent at doing year-end accounts, who are excellent at doing tax returns, VAT, all that kind of stuff. They're really good at that compliance type of work, stuff that I would go and ask for their support on as a finance director. What they don't have is what we have, which is 20 years experience of being inside an SME business, a startup, scale-up, or SME, actually living and breathing that business. And what we do is we build on the foundation of our accounting skills to help with all the things we help, all things financial, strategic, commercial within the business. So just like you would expect to have a different kind of lawyer when you buy a house to when you might be going through a divorce, or if you are, I don't know, going to a criminal court, you have different types of lawyers. You have different kinds of financial services. So your typical accountant who's doing the compliance work, some of them do try and do value-added work. I describe the work we do as value-added work. So some of them do that. What I would say is that our speciality is the value-added work. We understand the basics. I would always get, we're not a technical service. I'd always get technical work signed off by an accountant, frankly. But what we're there for is to help the business and solely help the business. And we think that if you set up a finance team or a business in a certain way, you can use the data that you help set up accurately, on time and relevant, to actually build a transparent picture of how the business is performing historically and how it may perform in the future. And the point I made earlier, helping business owners make better decisions quicker, is our aim. And I think your standard technical accountant doesn't have the experience to kind of get to roll up their sleeves and get involved in the business in the way that we do. So that was the opportunity I spotted with the FD consultant, where we're, 70, 80% cheaper than getting a full-time experienced FD. We're really flexible. And as I said, we're passionate about helping businesses grow. It's relevant experience. That's how I would describe it.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed from your website and the conversations we've had offline as well that with the work that you do, you're effectively helping the business to become more valuable, and it could potentially be sold in the future as well through the work that you're doing. Because again, with my acquisitions lens on,
yes,
so many businesses are not prepared for a sale because they don't track the numbers. They have no data room with all the relevant information, the reporting, the budgeting, the P&Ls, the management accounts, all this sort of stuff. And that's something that you help your clients with as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We've been FDs of businesses that were being sold. We've gone through that due diligence process. I think that the due diligence exercise it can be a box ticking exercise, or you can say to yourself as a business leader, do you know what, that's the aim in a few years. Let's do it now, and let's do it for the benefit of the business now, so we can add more value and have everything in place when we do decide to sell. So again, I'm always going back to the value added piece. So if you due diligence when a buyer is looking to buy a business is, as you well know, all about the buyer getting comfort that what's being said about the business is accurate and correct, and that the business has credibility and a positive future ahead. And they're looking for evidence for that. From a defensive side, they're looking to see that there are really good controls and processes, there's good transparency in the business, that the leadership team can see what's going on and, have good clarity on where the business is going. We provide that, but I think that it's better to get that in place before you're looking to sell, because you'll get to a bigger and better place at the point of sale. So yeah, that's the one point I would make. But getting corporate governance is really, really important. And you can listen, we talked about the SME environment being messy, but tidying it up as you go along, having structure, good processes, just helps with peace of mind, really, right? Business owners can be under so much pressure and have so much anxiety about lots of things, lots of challenges. Get the basics done right, and then build off that. And hopefully, you'll have a better business for it.
Yeah, and there's no downside to creating those systems in the due diligence process, building those financial processes and systems. There's no downside, because you either eventually sell the business because it's all there, or you just have a really well-run machine that you can know is doing well. So there's no downside. And
yeah,
when I speak,
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and when I speak to business owners, they understand that they're going to exit their business one way or another. You're going to sell it or you're not, and it's going to collapse and wither and die basically. And when I paint that picture, it kind of brings it to life for people through what you guys do. It's obviously a fractional service. You guys are very flexible, but is there a kind of range or size of business or client that you would look for typically? Is it a certain industry? Do you guys work across multiple industries?
Yeah, so So we do consider ourselves sector agnostic. We work across multiple industries. We've covered marketing, communications, real estate, chocolate factories, Swiss watchmakers, the whole bundle. And each sector can have its nuances, and I get that. But at the level we're operating, for the size of business, there's so much of the core brief which is transferable. And furthermore, every business is unique. The characters, the people, the processes, the environment. So there is adjustment at every point. We, as a team of fractional finance directors, I think I've put together a team that's really adaptable, flexible, and works with the client in partnership as opposed to standing and pointing and telling. We like to listen. We like to understand deeply the problem before kind of getting stuck in, if that makes sense. You don't want to make change for change's sake. You want to make effective change. And that's how I would suggest that you do that. To answer your question on size of business, so as I said, startup, scale up, SME, we've helped businesses with zero turnover where they might have raised some money with investment, for example. They might be looking for investment to 50 million turnover. So it is a range, and we will adapt to what that business needs, and we can be highly flexible in our support.
With that range, because it's such a big range, and I've kind of asked this question already, but from a high level, do you find businesses from the top end to the bottom end, do they suffer or have the same challenges from the high level to the startup phase? Do they have the same problems, or is it very different?
I suppose the answer to that question is yes and no. So there might be the same kind of challenge in terms of profitability on some sales streams, for example, but the way to fix those might be quite different based on the size and complexity of the business. There might be other themes such as the structure, the team structure, the way it's set up, the team culture. The one thing I would emphasize here is you start with the numbers, but we can help with so much more. Excuse me. One of my clients actually said to me last week, and I was really, really chuffed to get this feedback. They said, Romesh, what we love about the FD consultant is that, and we say this in the nicest possible way, is that the numbers is just the start. There's so much more that you guys help with, because I see finance as the center of a wagon wheel, and each department or activity in the business is a spoke in that wagon wheel. Everything that happens in business or in a business will go through finance in one form or the other. And that's why if you capture that information, you can use it to the advantage of that organization. And that's where we can really, really help. And so yeah, challenges can be similar, but potentially different solutions. Although, as I said, each business is unique. So we spend a lot of time observing, listening, asking questions before we make recommendations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So I always ask this question for business owners that come on, and I'm always interested to know this because as you know, Romesh, I've started in the last year or so to dive into AI a bit more. And I'm always curious to get people's perspective, like yourself, on AI within your industry. So my question is, AI is on everyone's lips. It's being talked about everywhere. It's hard to ignore it. It's everywhere. It would be easy for me to assume that AI is going to disrupt accountancy, but from someone like yourself who's in that space, the finance space, accountancy space, how do you see AI disrupting the space, or is it not going to disrupt the space?
Oh, I think it 100% will and is disrupting the space. And I think the key is to keep abreast of changes, understand what's out there, and understand what's effective and bring that to clients. And by doing that, you are adding value. And actually, we talk about this in a podcast where actually I had one of my clients come on as a guest, and they've been quite focused on the value of time in their business, the opportunity cost of their staff doing quite mundane activities that the staff find boring, is quite low value, but time consuming. So what they focused on is automating with the input of their team. And I think that's the key. Getting help from the likes of myself as well. And then getting their team to do more value added tasks. So the team is more motivated as well. And obviously the business is better off because, you know, you've got kind of efficiency with the task being automated, but also staff members working on stuff that's more productive and more beneficial to the business. And that's where I think we need to get to as individuals at all levels, really, because if you think about it, AI is going to subsume every task that is, you know, that is mechanical, that's repetitive, and, you know, using that mundane word again. Those are jobs that people don't necessarily want to be doing anyway. So I think that the trick is to kind of, you know, understand what else you can do to augment that kind of repetitive task. How can you make it better?
Augment, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And for us as finance directors, so at the FD Consultant, our group of consultants, we meet regularly, our group of consultants, because I feel very, very kind of motivated to build a meaningful community where we feel we're good at what we do. We believe in our expertise and experience, but actually we're still learning and everything is changing so rapidly. So we share knowledge, we get guest speakers to come and teach us new things. And we are trying to stay abreast of stuff. And we want to bring solutions to our clients that are relatively new to the sector or market. And I think there's significant value in that. There are obviously downsides to AI. There's a potential job loss scenario as well, which could be quite impactful. And I think society as a whole, because it's not just accounting, right? I think that's going to be across the board, really. So that's something that society will have to navigate. But to keep up, I think you need to try and adopt what you can.
Yeah, and you made me think about something there as well. So, like, in all my life, going to university and trying to become an accountant or in that world was always quite, you know, a good career to go for. Whereas now, you know, there's a part of me is thinking, you know, is there going to be enough young people coming through? Does there need to be enough young people coming through if AI can do a lot of the heavy lifting? And I've thrown that question to you here. What do you think about the pipeline of people coming through? Is accountancy and finance still going to be, you know, an industry that people want to get involved in, considering, you know, AI is going to disrupt it quite a lot?
Yeah, it's a big question. It's a good question. It's a big question, and it's a hard one to answer, right? What I've heard recently, for example, is that the Big Four have halved their graduate intakes.
Interesting.
Very recently. That's probably a sign of the impact of AI. The difficulty, of course, is that AI can't do everything, and it won't be able to do everything for some time, because at the moment AI is built on large language models, which isn't really intelligence. It is just an automotive algorithm. It doesn't think for itself. So you need humans to sit on top to make AI effective. So are we creating a problem for ourselves later, or is AI going to catch up and develop that intelligence? And what does that mean for wider society? I don't know is the answer. And I think that's for society to work out. I think there is some concern there, but there's also a massive opportunity. And if we can work together to make AI beneficial to everyone, there is a utopia, isn't there, where AI saves people a lot of time. We get a lot more free time, and we have a good standard of living across the board because of what AI can do. Let's hope that's the way it unfolds.
I immediately go to all the Terminator movies and all this sort of stuff as well. And it's the bit of a deep question. We won't go down this road, but it's what do people do without purpose? It's a very interesting thought. So I wanted to talk to you about the podcast as we begin to wrap up, Romesh. So you're a fellow podcaster. I always enjoy speaking to fellow podcasters, and I want to understand, I suppose, a little bit about it, first of all. So tell the audience a little bit about your podcast and what made you go into podcasting, because it's not easy. People think, it's just sticking a camera on and a microphone like this, but there's a lot of preparation and stuff that goes into it. So yeah, tell us a bit about your podcast and why you got into it.
Yeah, there is. And it was a bit intimidating at first, but it's been really rewarding, and I've learned an awful lot. That's how I would summarize it so far. So our podcast is called Strive and Thrive, Stephen, and it is a podcast for entrepreneurs, business owners, and leadership of SME businesses. I co-host the podcast with a guy called Mike Oliver, who is an innovations expert. He runs a business called Easel. So you'll be relieved to know it's not just about finance; it's about everything. So it's meant to be a kind of easily accessible, friendly discussion. We get guests come on who are entrepreneurs in their own right, who are also experts in certain fields, and we tap into their knowledge. We learn more about their business journey. We understand them and their personality, and I think that personal journey is it can be really engaging. And then tap into the insights and learnings that they've made, and why not learn from great people who've done great things. That's kind of what our approach has been. We've covered loads of topics, right? So we're getting close to our 25th episode. So we've been,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. That's something we're quite proud of. We have covered topics like the power of networking with networking experts, how to build your personal brand, the value of time in business, which I touched upon earlier. And I got one of my clients to come on board because he had such a compelling story and a way of describing that, which was fantastic. Because you've got Mike's different take on things in mind. It tends to be like a three-way discussion. And as I said, hopefully friendly and accessible, and you get some good things from it. There's loads more topics. We've covered AI, futures thinking. We've had one episode recently, why middle management sucks, for example. And I do feel I'm learning a number of things from each episode. And the more you're learning, the more you're educating yourself, the better you are at doing what you're doing, right? So
one of the main
I'm sure you
things,
identify with that, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the main reasons I started my podcast was to try and improve my communication skills, and anyone listening to this has probably realised that hasn't worked so far. So trying to slow down my rate of speaking because I'm Scottish.
I think you're really good, actually. I'm not just saying that. I think you present really well. I appreciate the challenges of doing it. So yeah, it's good.
You always find it's a conversation, isn't it? And but I think we can go and listen to Diary of a CEO, Joe Rogan, all these big podcasts, but for the average business owner, sometimes they're not that relatable. So smaller podcasts, micro podcasts like this, like yours, you can hear from real business owners round the street, round the corner from you, find out what they're going through, find out how they succeeded, which is a bit more relatable. to the average listener.
Yeah.
I noticed the guitar behind you, and I know we spoke beforehand. I'm not going to ask you to play me a song.
You.
But yeah, it's something we spoke about beforehand, is that we've got a passion for music.
Yeah.
When I meet you in person, or I maybe come on the podcast, maybe I'll get to hear a song from you.
Well, I'll tell you what, I definitely won't be on the podcast, but in person for sure. No, that would be good. Do you play as well?
Oh no, I'm terrible.
No.
I'm tone deaf.
But you do like music and you go to gigs, don't you?
Yeah, I don't do it as much as I'd like to, but yeah, it's a good breakaway from the busyness of running businesses. Romesh, it's been great having you on the podcast. Before I let you leave, because there's been some great insights, and I know
Thank
my
you.
audience would really benefit from working with you, from getting in touch with you. So, if someone listens to this and they want to reach out to you or listen to the podcast, where should they go?
Well, firstly, Stephen, thanks so much for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed meeting you, actually. You know, we've had a couple of meetings beforehand. It's been brilliant. I really enjoyed this conversation. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find us on the FD Consultant website, which is thefdconsultant.com. The Strive and Thrive podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. And yeah, so you get the pleasure of seeing our ugly mugs as well, if that's what you're into. But yeah, please do reach out. And as I said, just passionate about helping businesses. And it's tough times at the moment, isn't it? There's a lot of challenges out there. So yeah. But again, thank you for the opportunity, Stephen. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, it's been great getting to know you as well, Romesh. It's been a great episode. I've learned a lot as well, and yeah, looking forward to this one coming out. Thank you.
Cheers.